allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jason Harvey, and this is the first episode of the podcast per Tempus. And this podcast, I guess this is, this is the first episode, so I kind of wanted to explain my idea of around creating this podcast and its intent, or what I intend for it. My audience really isn't for anyone other than my kids and any future generations of Harveys or whoever else that comes down the line. I wanted this to be like a permanent audio recording of my findings on Ancestry.com and a couple of the other genetic testings that I've done. Just, I don't know, I guess as like a contingency, if the house burns down or I get hit by a bus, at least there will be a recording of this on the cloud and on podcast services. So, I guess I should start off by, I don't know, as a young man, I was always curious about where I came from or who I came from. And I grew up without my father. So for Jessica and Dakota, my kids, you'll probably already know this beforehand by the time you listen to this, or if you do listen to this. I grew up without my father, or contact with my father. He left when I was 3, so no contact from his side of the family. So I didn't know anything about him, where he came from, ethnicity, ancestry, anything like that. I mean, I did have some childhood photos of him. I mean, he looks just like a, I don't know, regular white guy that looks kind of like me. My mom raised me for all of my life. And then, my mom had always insisted that we were Native American. And, I believed that while we were living out in Texas, because, there weren't really any other native tribes that we had access to in Texas. I mean, there was Alabama Coshada that we went out to a couple of times, but there wasn't this consistent native presence in Texas or in the neighborhoods that we lived in. So I really didn't have a reference to kind of gauge that by. So I believed in what she said for a number of years. And I imagine a lot of Caucasian Americans, white Americans, believe this. I don't know how many people I've met that have said that they're, 164th Cherokee or whatever else, Choctaw. I even heard someone told me when I was a freshman in high school that they were part Iroquois. So my mom and I moved out to Arizona when I was about 15. And we had been coming out to Arizona, visiting the Fort Apache reservation since I was 13. Then when I turned 15, or probably just before I turned 16, we came out. And so there, all of a sudden, I was surrounded by Apache people. And my mom married a tribal member. And so we were just engrossed in his family. And I kind of started to think, I don't look like them, and my mom doesn't look like them. And my mom would always say something like, yeah, well, not all native people look alike. And, that's true, but, there are some stark differences between, somebody like my mother and somebody from the Fort Apache reservation. So I guess fast forward to, I believe it was 2014, and I had read about 23andMe through some magazine, I guess I read, I don't know, somewhere. And this guy had, it was an article about this guy doing a DNA test and finding out, stuff he never knew about his ancestry. So I thought, well, cool, maybe I'll just go ahead and do that. I had the extra money. I spent the $99, and I wanted to know about my father's side of the family, because I had also read that it could differentiate between your Y chromosome and your X chromosome if you're a man. So all men inherit their Y chromosome from their fathers, but not the women. And I'm not going to get too far into that because I'm not a geneticist, and I'm not going to pretend to know that I know what I'm actually talking about. But in simple terms, a man can determine what kind of ancestry their father has. But if you're a woman, then you can only tell what your mother's ancestry is, and not your father's. So anyway, I told my mother this, and I said, I want to learn more about my father's side, and I'd like to see what the percentage of native ancestry that we have. And she thought, she told me, she said, this is great. Maybe we can get, tribal membership through this. And, she was all gung-ho at first. And so I got the package from 23andMe. I spit in the tube. There's about, I don't know, there's a lot of spit that you have to get into that tube. And so I did that, sent it back, and it was I probably waited about 2-3 months to get my results back. And it was quite the eye-opening experience once I logged in and I got my results back and found out, well, at that time, I guess the testing wasn't that great. So they gave me a 0.1% native ancestry. And I was really nervous about telling my mom this. And so I took my laptop to her and I showed the results to her, and she kind of had this pause and then said, I don't know, it was a very awkward and very difficult conversation to have to get through. And I think by the end of the conversation, she was convinced that I was calling her grandparents liars. Now, I had read I guess it was like a, like a warning label type kind of thing on their website saying, this could potentially wreck family relationships. And I didn't think anything of it because I thought our, our mother son bond was pretty strong. And, Jesus, that, I think that was one of the straws that broke the camel's back between the two of us. And I don't know if Jessica and Dakota, if I have told you this yet. I probably will, but at this current time, my mother has disowned me. And this is one of the reasons, one of the contributing factors. I remember we had several conversations over this genetic testing, and one of them was I found to be pretty disturbing, in which my mother told me, if you believe in this, something to the effect of, if you believe in this, you are not my son. And, man, that hurt to have my mother tell me something like that. So some people believe in something so strongly that they are willing to cast aside just important relationships, familial bonds, just to hang on to this identity. And, at a certain point, I just told her, it's genetic evidence. It cannot be disputed. What your grandparents told you is what they believed. It's not a lie, because it's what was told to them. It was passed down through the generations, but nobody really knew. But now I know. And if I keep going on, if I keep telling people, I'm, like half Cherokee, or I'm a quarter Cherokee, or whatever, that is a lie. And I can't live like that. I just can't bald-faced lie to people like that, claiming to be part of a heritage that I am not a part of, And growing up, there was no stories, no traditional stories, no language, no semblance of any kind of Cherokee wordage. My mom would say, "Oh, this is a traditional Cherokee dish," and it was like cornbread on Thanksgiving Day. I'm pretty sure everybody in the South eats cornbread. So anyway, sorry. Oops. Should probably edit that out. This is supposed to be a clean podcast. I'm sorry, kids. But, so yeah, Then fast forward to, so there, I just got those results, and maybe I should actually look them up on 23andMe and just read off all the different populations. So just pulled up the Ancestry composition, and there are some discrepancies that I'll go over, but it is at 99.6 European. So 58.7% is British and Irish. However, when I go click on the expander, whatever you call it, it has these regions in which other people have been tested in within the United Kingdom. And first, right off the bat, I guess it's based on the population of people that are tested. So I have a lot of relatives based out of London. Second is Glasgow in Scotland. Third is Merseyside. Fourth is Tyne and Ware. I hope I spelled that right. Fifth is West Midlands. 6, Belfast. 7, West Yorkshire. I hope I'm saying these names right. 8 is Greater Manchester. 9, Cumbria. And 10, Derbyshire. So, and it says we did not detect enough evidence from Guernsey or Ireland. Show you why later on why I find this kind of hard to believe. So the next population is French, which is at 19.9%, and the three populations that are the strongest are, I'm going to butcher this name, Auvergne, Rhone, Alps. So I assume that's next to the French Alps, kind of by Switzerland. The second is Brittany, and the third is Pays de la Loire. I hope I said that right. I'm kind of depending on my Spanish to get me through these French words. So the next population is in the northwestern European kind of bracket is Scandinavian, which I do believe, which is at 2.3%, Finnish at 0.5%, and then there is the next bracket, which is Southern European, Spanish and Portuguese at 1.8%, which I do believe. I've found that in my ancestry. Italian at 1.1%. And then there is some trace ancestry, 0.3% Cypriot, which is Cyprus is an island in the Mediterranean. Which I can believe. So for a while there, that's it. That was the extent of my ancestry research. And then I think it was the reason why I decided to do a second DNA test was because I kind of had it in my mind, well, maybe my mom is wrong, or maybe there's some truth to what my mom said. So maybe I need to take a second DNA test just to see if there's any discrepancies between the two testing sites. And so I went with Ancestry because I knew that out of all the DNA ancestry type kind of companies, Ancestry has been around for quite a while. And so I decided to buy the kit, did the spit in the vial, sent it off, and got my results back. And I have to say, the results are very similar. With the exception that this, with Ancestry.com, Ancestry DNA, they include Ireland as a population, whereas on 23andMe, Ireland was not included. And they kind of break it down into further tested populations, which is really cool. It's very detailed. So the first tested population would be England and Northwestern Europe, which I do find a lot in my ancestry research. So I can believe that. I kind of thought, sorry, I'm jumping around all over the place. My father's last name is Aker, and I was able to go back pretty far with that name and trace it back to Germany. So I'm wondering if that DNA, the German Netherlands DNA, is included in with this population, because it says Northwestern Europe, and it has the regions Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and bits of Austria and Germany included in that. So it's possible. The second largest tested population, or second largest result, would be Ireland at 21%. However, a few months ago, Scotland was listed at 21%. So, but now they kicked it back down to Scotland is at the third highest tested population at 20%, which, I don't know. The Scottish people did come from the Irish Dalriatans, who inhabited the western side of Scotland for generations upon generations. And then once the Pictish strongholds fell, after the Viking raids, the Dalriatans spread out throughout the rest of Scotland. And I don't know, I've read some research that that there's nothing that survived from the Pictish people, but I don't know, I kind of think about it in terms, maybe perhaps the Scottish Dalriatans, maybe the migration wave was so great that the Pictish people just could not. I'm trying to put it into words. The Pictish people's culture and way of life had to adapt to this massive influx of Scottish Dalriatans. And so the Dalriatan culture just kind of took over. Anyway, yeah. I hope you two are following me still. So the fourth tested population is France at 15%, which is pretty close with 23andMe at 20%. The next tested population is Wales, which that was pretty cool to see. at 4%, and Norway at 2%. And let's see, which that makes sense. 23andMe has just Scandinavian at 2.3, so that sort of matches. So yeah, those are the results from my test, and I'm in some aspects I see where the 23andMe is really helpful. And I'll go over that in future episodes, like the Spanish and Portuguese. I actually found that. I found a Spanish ancestor from my great-grandmother, Lily Mae Gobert, who is Cajun French, but like a tiny, tiny bit Spanish. And I did find some hint of a Roman ancestor from the Roman invasion of Britannia, or Great Britain. So in these upcoming episodes, what I would really like to do is to, I don't know, either pick out a lineage. I would really like to go over the Stuarts, because they occur, I counted, they occur on 5 different occasions. 3 times on my mother's side and 2 times on my father's side. And they are a pretty notable Scottish clan. I would like to go over the other Scottish clans. There's so many stories that I've been able to find that I would really like to go over and to discuss and talk about. Yeah, there's just so many, like Sarah Davis. She's important. Then there's Cynthia Ann Alley, who was like, her and her brothers were one of the first 300 settlers in Texas. Gosh. Yeah. So I think maybe I'll do lineages, and I'll do, events that my family took place in, as well as individuals in my ancestry. So I don't know. I think this could be a pretty cool little podcast. Yeah. So anyway, right now this podcast is just on Spotify. I don't have any social medias for it. And and this podcast is also on Anchor. I'm going to try to work on getting this podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts. So please stay tuned for more. Thank you guys. If you want, you can go to anchor.fm/per Tempus, PERTEMPUS, and you can leave a message, I think either a voice message or a written message, and let me know what you think. And yeah. Oh shit. Sorry for the cussing. I should actually let you guys know, sorry, before you click pause, I should let you guys know what the name of the podcast actually means. I was researching for about 5 hours one night, about a month ago, and I thought, this is a lot like